crazy couple of seasons have taken place. We went from Montgomery with a record high season, then a very disappointing postseason. Then he gets fired midseason, gets replaced by Sacco. Then Sacco gets canned. And now we've got Marco Sturm. Where do you see the Bruins stand right now? Where do you see them going in the future? It just feels like an identity crisis of sorts, if I could say that, especially now with their captain gone.
Yeah, I think, well, this is since I've done this job or like come back and really paid attention to the Bruins again, this is definitely the most different offseason or going into the season has the most the first time where there's uncertainty or I'm a little unsure of what exactly this is going to look like or how it's going to play out. I've even going into last year, I didn't think they were as good as the year before, but I felt pretty confident in the lineup that they had and who they had in the roster. And this year, I'm cautiously optimistic, but that's just kind of who I am, anyways. And I get it, but the fact that you have Lindholm, like I guess I go back to. Yes, the core of Bergeron, Krejci, Marchand, Chara is gone, but I still like the core of David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, Hampus Lindholm. Like this isn't a team that is going to go to the bottom. Okay. They went to the bottom last year because it got really bad and they decided that that's what they were going to do. Like the roster at the end of the season was not very good.
Why did it get so bad last season?
Well, a lot of it, we talked about Swayman.
Yep.
Hampus Lindholm missing 65 games. That killed them. There was no secondary option. The power play struggled because of it. He's a huge piece of this. He eats 23, 24 minutes a night. I think So
does Greg.
Yes, correct. We overlooked how important Hampus was, and I think we saw that with the 65 games that he missed. Charlie McAvoy missed the last 30 games. So you missed the top two defensemen. I don't care if you're the Florida Panthers. If you miss two of your top defensemen and a few forwards up front, you're not going to be as good. You're just not. And
what happened with Monty?
Well, I think with Monty, it seemed that he didn't want to stay here. I think we heard at the start of the year that we want to do a contract extension. We want to do a contract, and they couldn't get to that. So at some point, you had to make a choice in where the season was going at that point. They're only one game under 500, but it didn't look good, right? They were losing 8-1. They were losing 9-2 on the road. They were giving up 5 goals in third periods. In the neutral zone was a mess, and it didn't look right. It wasn't right. And the fact that he wasn't signing an extension that they were offering him, he wasn't putting pen to paper, they had to make a decision. And it seemed obvious after the fact that he went right to St. Louis 3 days later, which is his hometown, which is where his wife's from, which is where his family lives, that was
figured out
seemed
beforehand.
To be a bit of an option in the back of his head, whether it was mid-season or at the end of the season, where he was just a little unsure if he was really going to stay here as a Boston Bruin. And I think him going to St. Louis was the perfect scenario for him and his family, but also kind of lent itself to where the Bruin, it seemed as though there was something else going on. It wasn't just a matter of firing Jim Montgomery. It was that Jim Montgomery might not have really wanted to be here long term.
So you're saying that 5-year deal wasn't totally consummated the second he was fired with the Blues?
I'm just saying it's
unlikely.
You can put you can connect the dots a little bit in the fact that he went to it wasn't the same as Bruce Cassidy. It's not the same as Bruce Cassidy. And again, these guys that have we talked Mike McDaniel. Like, you have 2 or 3 years. If you're a good coach, you're going to get a job again right out of the gates. That's just the way the hockey world is. Jim Montgomery, there's more to it in the fact that he went to the exact place that he wanted to go and signed a huge extension in St. Louis.
Don't you feel like they need to now stay put, though? Like, when it comes to Marco Sturm, they've got to give him a real fighting chance. It just felt like, to me, they canned Sacco when nothing was going in. Like, he was set up for failure.
Correct. And Joe's been around the league forever. And listen, he did a great job up until Christmas. That first 6 weeks, he got everybody back in place. But again, it just wasn't sustainable with the back end that they had with Lindholm out. And Joe knew that. I don't see him not getting rehired as another coach. Like
head coach.
It was interim. They didn't ever commit to him being the head coach. It was like he was the placeholder. They weren't going to go and make a decision quickly in October, and wanted the summer. And they took a long time to make this decision on Marco Sturm as well, which I think just goes to show why they didn't do that in October, because they know that they can't pull the trigger again 3 months into this.
So Sweeney, I think, is one of the more unique executives in Boston sports over the last generation, because he's had great success. They give you the numbers. I know Dan Duquette got in trouble for it, but most points over a certain number of years, most regular season wins, and yet here they are on their third coach, and not that, 4 years, 3 years, and the coach they had, Cassidy, which you're right, that felt like that was a unit that worked well together, that had just run its course.
Yep.
They were saddened to see Cassidy go. Cassidy was frustrated when he left, but I think that was a unit for a long period of time. How do they make this work, and how does Sweeney, how long is the leash? Because I think it's now on Sweeney. Sturm, I guess, could be collateral damage, but if the team isn't successful in the next 2 to 3 years, that will be on Sweeney more so than the coach.
Yeah, it feels like that's where we're at. But I think it's really important for everyone to understand that this is going to, whenever, and Don Sweeney's going to get fired at some point, right? Like, no GM has ever been a GM for 50 straight years in his entire career. Right. So, but it's important for everyone to know the exact same thing's going to happen when Don Sweeney gets fired. Whenever that is, if it's 5 years from now, he's going to get a job the next day if he wants it. He's highly, highly regarded in the National League. You don't get Team Canada general manager opportunities for Four Nations, being on part of the Olympic team in Canada, if you're not really well respected and thought of very highly in the hockey world. It's a massive job, and the fact that he was given that job just proves what he's thought of and how hard he works, and what his discipline in the job is, and how much he puts into it. So it's just important to put that out there first. I know we're in Boston. I know it doesn't really matter what everyone else thinks. This is Boston, and he's been here a long time, and they haven't won a Stanley Cup under his, and they had a bad draft 10 years ago, which we still somehow talk about all the time. I understand all that criticism and the fact that he's gone through coaches. It is on them right now, and I think Don knows it as well as anyone. He's a Boston guy now, and he understands that.
How hard was it, do you think, for him when it came to Brad and the decision to go with that trade?
No, it was hard for everybody, and certainly the organization has to know what the fallout will be. Again, they know this market and deal with it on a daily basis, and I'm sure they knew, especially him going to Florida. Everybody knows what that narrative is going to be once it gets done. And but I also think it lends itself to how good Don is at his job at a lot of times, that he's willing to do that and willing to make those decisions. And the easy one would have been to let Brad stay. That would have been the easy one. Did
you believe any of the rumors that after he won the Stanley Cup that there were maybe talks of bringing him back?
No, I think that, I mean, talks is, what does that mean? I don't, I'm sure that, yes, you have to talk about that. I'm sure Brad talked about it with his family and had those discussions. That Boston is one of 3 or 4 or 5 places that Brad probably would have been willing to go to. But I think the feeling, I don't know, from my feeling was once he left and once they went on a run, it felt like, okay, you do have to turn the page here. It's really hard to bring him back and put the C back on him and do all of that now that he's gone. I think when the deal was done initially, I thought, well, maybe you could do a, kind of a rental play. But once you saw him in the playoffs in Florida, it felt like, okay, you kind of have to move on.
It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. I just feel like the Bruins, who we always say their fan base, no matter what, stays very intact. Like they don't miss buying their season tickets. They don't miss out on games, even if they're having an off season. It just feels like Bruins fans have a passion unlike any other team, but nobody's even talking about them right now. This off season has felt so quiet around the Bruins that it's almost scary.
The winter is going to be a unique place this year in the Boston sports scene because neither team is competing for a championship.
Yeah.
And, going back How many games away were we for the Celtics and Bruins both being in the championship together? Remember that was the whole talk. You know, could they get a double championship?
We were talking about how are they going to schedule to make sure that fans could be able to watch and go.
Oh, Curtis and Courtney talked about a parade on the Game 7. It was a whole to-do. Yeah, I remember.
I do think though, to that point again. You can debate that this team could be at the bottom, or it could be 8th place, it could be 5th place in the you can debate it a bunch of different ways because no one really knows. But I do think once it gets going and you see everybody back on the ice, you see McAvoy back, you see Lindholm back, you see Swayman taking a step, you see David Pass, you'll get a bit of a swell. I think after the way the season ended last year, so many people just wanted to not think about it, and we really won't get that back until training camp starts. But I don't. They're not winning the conference by any means, but I think there's more there than people are giving them credit for.
Hot button topic that former NHL players have talked about, especially during this offseason, the millionaires tax, and in regards to playing in Boston, do you think it plays into that?
Yeah, certainly it does. Again, you see it. Florida or Tampa Bay have won the Eastern Conference 6 years in a row, 7 years in a row. So there's something there. I think Boston's really lucky in hockey circles that this is a place that guys want to live, though. So you do have you don't have
why is that? You
don't have the backstop of I think it's we talked about family and growing and raising kids and raising a family here. I think that's a lot of the guys at that point and have families and know that and understand that from a hockey perspective, I would say. I think that it's kind of a European city. It's kind of a Canadian city. It's something familiar. It's small town, but a big city. I think those are the reasons why hockey guys like it here. But at the end of the day, when I talk to my agent, okay, what's my contract? It doesn't really matter what my contract is. It's what's my end dollar at the end of each season? Right. How much am I actually? What's taxes, agent fees, cost of living, all of these things? What is my number at the end of the day? And that's what guys have figured out. That guys are concerned about that, and that's why you're seeing. And also, it's pretty cool to live on the beach and play hockey all season.
And no pressure and no fans. But Gary Bettman, I think it was this past Cup final, was asked about it, and he got very defensive.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. The business side of it's very defensive because obviously they don't want to make it look like one team or one state is getting an advantage. But there's no question that. And again, Boston's in between what's going on up north. Again, you go to Canada and it's
crazy.
You're 53% tax in Toronto,
and you can't even fly home when you get to your location.
And you can't, if you're in Vancouver, you can't buy a house because they have foreign international housing rules.
What?
Really?
Yeah. You can't buy, if you're an American in Vancouver, you can't buy a house.
So all of those guys just have to rent?
Yeah.
Even if they're a lifer?
Even if they're a lifer, yeah.
So how is there a process by which you could become able to purchase something, or is it just only if you're a Canadian citizen?
Yeah, they did it because so many of the Chinese dollars were coming over and they were just funneling it through real estate in Vancouver. So,
wow.
Yeah.